Welcome to the sleepy Geographer channel, a quiet corner where the world unfolds slowly, fact by fact, ridge by ridge. Tonight, the story waiting for you is not of stone and uplift, but of light and time. It is the story of the turning year, of the quiet cosmic dance that brings the blossom after the frost and the harvest moon after the summer haze. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you are listening from this evening. Perhaps you are wrapped in the deep chill of winter, listening as the wind whispers at your window. Or maybe you are in the full, lush embrace of summer, with the scent of rain-soaked earth drifting in. If you find comfort in these journeys, I'd be so grateful if you could gently tap the like button and subscribe. To those who are already subscribed, thank you kindly. You are the steady rhythm to this channel's ever-changing sky, and a small reassurance. I do hope this exploration of the seasons doesn't lull you into too deep a reverie. But if it does, may you slip into tomorrow with the gentle understanding that the world is turning just as it should, in a rhythm far grander than our own. So, how does our world, spinning in the vast, silent black, experience this beautiful, predictable change? The seasons are not a mere function of proximity, of the earth leaning closer to the sun like a child to a hearth, as is so often pictured. No, the truth is more elegant, more subtle. It is a story written in a tilt, a story of angles and light, a celestial performance where our planet is both the dancer and the stage. This is not just a tale of astronomy, of cold facts and calculated degrees. It is a story woven into the very fabric of life itself. It is the signal for the bear to sleep and the goose to fly. It is the ancient clock that told the first farmer when to sow and when to reap. It is the reason for our festivals, our myths, our deepest metaphors for life, death, and rebirth. The crimson blush of an autumn leaf, the first brave crocus piercing the snow, the long, lazy twilight of a summer evening. These are all verses in this single, endless poem written by the cosmos. We will begin our journey far from the surface, in the realm of orbits and angles. We will understand the 23.5 degree secret held in our planet's posture, a slight lean that is the sole author of winter's silence and summer's abundance. We will follow the sun's path across our sky, tracing how its height determines not just temperature, but the very quality of light, the length of shadows, and the feeling of a day. We will pause at the two moments of perfect balance, the equinoxes, when day and night stand equal across the globe, a fleeting equilibrium before the tilt pulls us again toward light or dark. And we will stand in awe at the solstices, the sun's extreme points, the zenith of summer and the nadir of winter, which have been marked by humanity with stone circles and sacred fires for thousands of years. This journey will take us from the temperate lands, where 4 distinct seasons act out their play, to the tropics, where the year is divided not by temperature, but by rain and drought. We will venture to the polar extremes, where the sun does not set for months, and then vanishes entirely, creating seasons of relentless light and profound, star-filled darkness. We will see how the ocean itself breathes in and out with the seasons, its currents shifting, its life blooming and retreating in a silent, watery pulse. We will consider how this celestial clock shaped human civilization, dictating the rhythms of agriculture, inspiring our greatest monuments, and giving structure to our calendars and our lives, and we will look inward to the seasons within ourselves. For this external rhythm finds an echo in our own spirits. The renewed energy of spring, the expansive joy of summer, the reflective melancholy of autumn, and the quiet introspection of winter, these are not mere coincidences. We are creatures of this earth, and its most fundamental rhythm is etched into our very bones. This exploration is both scientific and reflective. It is about axial tilt and solar declination, yes, but it is also about what the harvest moon means to a lonely heart, or what the first thaw means to a winter-weary soul. It is about the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of time's passage. So let us begin this slow walk through the turning year. Let us observe it not with haste, but with the patience of a tree counting its rings or a glacier marking the centuries. We will take it one step at a time, one fact at a time, one quiet revelation at a time. Imagine, if you will, a vast, dark stage. In the center, a single steady flame burns. This is our sun. And around it, spinning gracefully, is a blue and white marble leaning ever so slightly to one side as it travels its circular path. This is our home. From this simple image, this tilted spin around a constant fire, everything else unfolds. The crunch of frost, the scent of clover, the color of a maple tree in October. It all begins here. So find a comfortable place to rest and let your mind drift into the grand, slow, and beautiful dance of the seasons. A dance that has continued for billions of years and will continue for billions more, a constant, comforting rhythm in a universe of chaos. This is the story of our turning year. In our last moment together, we began to picture it, our world as a solitary voyager, spinning in the great dark, leaning into its journey around a steady star. Tonight, we will settle into this idea. We will acquaint ourselves with the very stage upon which the drama of the seasons unfolds. This is the story of our orbit, the fundamental, graceful rhythm that underlies every single day and year we will ever know. Before we drift deeper, I'd like to extend a quiet thank you. To those of you who have joined this channel since we began, your presence is felt like the first few stars appearing at twilight. If these journeys bring a moment of peace to your evening, I would be so grateful if you'd consider subscribing. It is a gentle way to ensure you don't miss our next step into the quiet marvels of our world. Now let us turn our gaze outward to the path itself. The most common picture of Earth's orbit is a simple, flat ellipse. And while this is not wrong, it can feel mechanical. It can feel like a gear in a clock. But to understand the seasons, we must first learn to feel this path not as a line on a page, but as a rhythm as real and as profound as your own heartbeat. Imagine, if you will, the sheer act of it. Our planet, with all its mountains and oceans, its cities and forests, its teeming, intricate web of life, is hurtling through the void. It is moving at a speed that would seem impossible, unimaginable to us in our daily lives, nearly 30 kilometers every single second. That is over 100,000 kilometers an hour, a pace so swift it could carry you around our own world's equator in less than 25 minutes. And yet, from where we stand, there is no sensation of movement. No great wind rushes past. The cup of tea on your desk sits perfectly still. This is the first quiet miracle of our orbit, its sublime smoothness. There is no friction in the vacuum of space, no rough road to travel, only the silent, persistent tug of the sun's gravity, a force acting across 150 million kilometers of emptiness, holding us in our path like an invisible string. We are falling perpetually towards the sun, but our tremendous forward speed ensures we forever miss it, swinging around in an endless, graceful curve. This path, this grand circle, is what we call an orbit. And the time it takes to complete one single circuit is, of course, 1 year. Not a calendar year of neatly divided months, but the true astronomical year, 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes and 45 seconds. Those extra hours are the reason for our leap years, a subtle correction we make to keep our human calendars in sync with this grand, celestial clock. Now you may have heard that Earth's orbit is not a perfect circle, but an ellipse, a gentle oval. And this is true. There is a point in early January when we are closest to the sun, a moment called perihelion. And there is a point in early July when we are farthest, known as aphelion. This seems at first like it should be the answer to our seasonal riddle. Surely we are warmer when we are closer to the fire, but here lies one of the most beautiful and counterintuitive truths of our planet. For those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, our closest approach to the sun occurs in the dead of winter, and our farthest point comes in the heart of summer. The difference in distance is, in the grand scale, too small to be the primary cause of our seasons. The true architect is not our changing distance, but something else entirely, a secret held in our planet's posture, which we will uncover in our next chapter. So, if it is not our proximity, what is the purpose of this elliptical path? It is a modifier, a subtle influence on the intensity of the seasons. Because we are slightly closer to the sun during the northern winter, that hemisphere's winter is just a little milder, and its summer is just a little cooler than they would be in a perfect circle. The southern hemisphere, by contrast, experiences a slightly more intense summer when Earth is near perihelion and a slightly sharper winter at aphelion. It is a nuance, a gentle variation on the main theme. To truly appreciate this, we must consider the scale. The universe is a place of violent extremes, of supernovas and colliding galaxies. Yet here, in our little corner, we have been granted an orbit of remarkable stability. It is not so elliptical that we swing wildly between scorching heat and frozen silence. It is, for all intents and purposes, nearly circular, a testament to the fine-tuned balance of our solar system. This stability is the foundation upon which life itself was built. It provides the consistency that allows ecosystems to evolve, that allows ancient oaks to grow for centuries, that allows human civilization to plant crops with the faith that the sun will return in a predictable rhythm. This is the great stage, a vast, dark theatre with a single brilliant spotlight at its centre. And our world is a dancer moving with impeccable timing along a circular path. But a dancer on a perfect circle, facing the spotlight directly, would be evenly illuminated at all times. There would be no variation, no drama of light and shadow. For that, the dancer must tilt. And so, as we conclude our contemplation of the path itself, we are left with a new question. If the journey around the sun sets the rhythm, what creates the melody? What is the source of the light and shadow, the heat and cold, that we call spring, summer, autumn, and winter? The answer lies not in our journey, but in our lean. A slight, persistent tilt that changes everything. But that is a story for next time. For now, as you go about your days, perhaps you can pause for a moment and feel it. Not the speed, of course, but the rhythm. When you see a year-old photograph, remember that since that moment was captured, you have completed a full, magnificent 940 million kilometer journey around a star. You are a passenger on a voyage of sublime grace, a journey that is the very definition of a year and the silent, steady heartbeat of our world. We have familiarized ourselves with the stage, the vast circular journey around the sun. We have felt the rhythm of the year, but a rhythm alone is not a dance. For that, we need movement, posture, a tilt of the head, a lean of the body, and our Earth, it turns out, is a dancer with a most distinctive and crucial posture. Tonight, we uncover the secret, the single, elegant ingredient without which our world would be a monotone, a place without the symphony of the seasons. This is the story of the tilt. Before we delve into this profound lean, I want to thank you for gathering here again. If this journey into the quiet mechanics of our world brings you a sense of wonder, I would be so grateful if you gently tap the like button or subscribe to The Sleepy Geographer. To those already part of our community, your presence is the gravity that holds this channel in its course. Thank you. Now let us look at our world not as a map, but as a spinning sphere in space. Picture it clearly. It spins, completing a rotation once every 24 hours, and this spin is what gives us our day and night. But crucially, it does not spin upright, like a perfect top. No, it spins at an angle. Its axis, the imaginary line running from the North Pole to the South Pole, is tilted away from the vertical by approximately 23.5 degrees. This is the secret. This is the lean. It is a small number, 23.5. It seems almost insignificant. It is less than the angle of a roof on a gentle shed. It is the angle between the hour and minute hand on a clock at 10 minutes past 7. It feels like a detail, but in the cosmos, details are everything. This slight, persistent tilt is the master sculptor of our climate, the creator of our seasons, the reason why the world is not locked in a perpetual, uniform sameness. To understand its power, we must first imagine a world without it. If Earth's axis were perfectly perpendicular to its orbit around the sun's rays would always strike the equator most directly. Every day of the year, all over the globe, day and night would be precisely 12 hours long. The sun would follow the exact same path across the sky, day after day, year after year. There would be no progression, no summer, no winter. The poles would exist in a perpetual, weak twilight, and the tropics would forever swelter. The world would be divided into static, unchanging bands of climate. It would be a beautiful world, perhaps, but a predictable one. A quiet, but ultimately monotonous tune. But our world is not that world. Our world is tilted. And because it is tilted, its orientation to the sun changes as it travels along its yearly journey. Imagine now the Earth at one point in its orbit, let's say the point we in the Northern Hemisphere call June. The North Pole is tilted toward the sun, not just the pole, but the entire Northern Hemisphere is leaning sunward. Think of a person leaning towards a lamp. Their head and shoulders are more fully illuminated than their feet. So it is with the hemisphere. The sun's rays, which would have shone directly on the equator in an upright world, now strike the Tropic of Cancer at 23.5 degrees north latitude. This is the summer solstice. The consequences are profound. Because the hemisphere is tilted toward the sun itself appears much higher in the sky. It takes a longer, more direct path from sunrise to sunset. The days are long, the nights are short, and most importantly, the sun's energy is concentrated. The light falls more directly, less spread out, and so it heats the ground more effectively. This is the recipe for summer. Now let us follow our tilted planet 6 months further along its path. It has travelled to the opposite side of the sun. The North Pole, which was tilted toward the sun, is now tilted away from it. The southern hemisphere is now the one leaning into the light. The sun's most direct rays have migrated south to the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degrees south. This is the winter solstice for the north. Now the sun appears low in the northern sky, even at noon. Its path is short and shallow, the days are brief, the nights are long, and the sun's energy is diluted, spread over a much larger area because of the low angle. The same amount of light, but its warming power is diminished. This is the essence of winter. This 23.5 degree tilt is constant. It does not waver as we orbit. The North Pole always points in the same direction in space toward Polaris, the North Star. It is we who are moving around the sun, causing the relationship between the tilt and the sun's light to change. We are like a dancer leaning at a fixed angle, spinning as we circle a spotlight. Sometimes our lean shoulder is bright and warm, sometimes it is in shadow and cool. This tilt is not a recent development. It is a primordial feature, likely the result of a colossal impact in the early solar system that set our world spinning at this particular angle. It is a scar that became a blessing, an accident of cosmic violence that gave our planet its dynamic character, its rhythm of growth and rest, its beauty of change. So, as you feel the sun on your skin, whether it is the weak, glancing light of a winter afternoon or the strong, direct heat of a summer's day, remember the lean. It is the 23.5-degree secret that paints our world in a changing light. It is the reason for the harvest and the hibernation, for the long evenings of laughter and the quiet, introspective nights by the fire. We have now met the two partners in the dance, the orbit and the tilt. In our next moment together, we will see how these two partners work in perfect synchrony to create the two moments of perfect balance in our year. But for now, simply hold this thought: our world is gracefully, permanently off kilter, and it is in this beautiful imbalance that we find the rich, varied, and poetic balance of our lives. We have mapped the stage, the orbital path. We have understood the dancer's posture, the 23.5-degree tilt. But every dance requires a source of light, a central point around which all motion revolves. Tonight we turn our gaze to that center. We contemplate the solitary, unwavering star that is the source of it all. Before we begin, I wish to extend a quiet thank you. To see our community of curious minds growing is a deeply humbling thing. If these contemplations bring a moment of perspective to your day, I would be so grateful if you'd consider subscribing to the Sleepy Geographer. For those already here, your presence is a steady warmth, much like the subject of our thoughts today. Now let us look upon our sun. From our earthly perspective, it is a familiar disk, the bringer of day, the painter of shadows, the source of warmth on our skin. We watch it rise with hope and set with reflection. But to understand its role in the seasons, we must step back, far back, and see it for what it truly is: a colossal engine of fusion, a solitary giant pouring forth a constant, unimaginable torrent of energy into the void. It is this constancy that is its first and most crucial characteristic. The sun does not flicker like a candle. It does not wax and wane in its output with the whims of the year. It is a steady, relentless furnace, every second in its core, where temperatures soar to 15 million degrees Celsius. 600 million tons of hydrogen are fused into helium. This process releases energy on a scale that defies human comprehension, enough in a single second to power human civilization at its current rate for hundreds of thousands of years. This energy radiates outward in all directions, a tiny fraction of it traveling the 150 million kilometers of empty space to reach our world. It is this flood of light, this river of photons, that is the sole source of warmth for our planet. It is the only reason our world is not a frozen, airless rock, tumbling through the absolute zero of space. There is no other meaningful source. The heat from Earth's own core is trivial in comparison. The sun is our one, our only celestial fire, and it is utterly impartial. It does not favor the northern hemisphere in June or the southern in December. It pours forth its energy in a perfectly even spherical wave. It is a lighthouse whose beam shines equally in all directions. The variations we experience, the biting cold of winter, the sweltering heat of summer, are not because the sun is giving us less or more. They are entirely a consequence of how we, the tilted and orbiting Earth, present ourselves to this constant stream. Think of it as standing near a bonfire on a cold night. If you stand facing the flames, directly in the path of the heat, your front grows warm, even hot. But if you turn sideways, you present a narrower profile. The same energy is spread more thinly across your body, and you feel a chill, even though the fire itself has not dimmed. This is the essence of our relationship with the sun. Our tilt determines which part of our planetary body is facing the fire most directly. This constant, impartial flow is what makes the seasonal rhythm so reliable, so predictable. The ancient builders of Stonehenge, the astronomers of Babylon, the Mayan priests, they could all build their calendars and their temples with absolute faith that the sun would behave tomorrow as it did yesterday. Its rhythm is the most dependable thing we know. The crops grow in its light, the winds are driven by its heat. The very oxygen we breathe was liberated by its energy in the photosynthesis of ancient plants. It is also a humbling force. We speak of a gentle sun or an angry sun, but these are human projections. The sun is neither gentle nor angry. It is simply awesomely itself. It is a ball of plasma governed by the immutable laws of physics. It does not intend to give us a summer breeze, nor does it intend to create a drought. It merely is. And we, with our fragile bodies and temporary lives, have evolved to thrive within the narrow band of conditions its constant light makes possible. In the grand, silent theatre of our solar system, the sun is the silent, brilliant protagonist. The planets are but supporting actors, reflecting its light, dancing in its gravity. We on Earth are fortunate beyond measure. We orbit at precisely the right distance, within the so-called Goldilocks zone, where the sun's constant light is strong enough to keep water liquid, but not so strong as to boil it away. It is a perfect and perfectly fragile arrangement. So the next time you feel the sun's warmth on your face, consider the journey that light has taken. It began its life in a nuclear inferno 150 million kilometers away, 8 minutes ago. It has traveled across the vacuum of space at the speed of light, untouched, unaltered, until it struck your skin. That sensation is a direct connection to the heart of our star. It is the metronome to our orbital rhythm, the painter of our tilted world. It is the solitary sun, the silent source of every season we will ever know. In our next chapter, we will see how this constant light, when it strikes our tilted Earth, creates the first and most fundamental pattern, the angle of its touch. But for now, let us simply sit with the magnitude of this simple fact. All the light, all the warmth, all the energy that drives the glorious, complex dance of life and seasons on our blue planet comes from a single, steady, and solitary star. Welcome back to our quiet unraveling of the seasons. We have met our steady sun, pouring forth its constant energy. We understand our tilted Earth, presenting itself differently throughout the year. But now we must bridge these two ideas. We must understand the physics of the encounter, the moment when sunlight finally touches the ground. This is the story of the angle of light, a simple principle that holds the key to why a summer sun feels so different from a winter sun. Before we delve into this beautiful geometry, I want to thank you for your continued presence on this journey. If these gentle explanations help make the world feel a little more comprehensible, a little more wondrous, I would be so grateful if you'd consider subscribing to the Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your curiosity is the light that illuminates this channel. Thank you. Now let us conduct a simple thought experiment. Imagine you have a powerful flashlight, and it is a perfectly focused beam, say 1 foot wide. If you shine this flashlight directly down onto the floor at a 90-degree angle, it will create a bright, concentrated circle of light. All of the flashlight's energy is focused into that one small area. Now, without changing the flashlight's power, tilt it. Shine it at a shallow angle, skimming across the floor. What happens? The beam stretches. It is no longer a neat circle, but a long, elongated ellipse. The same amount of light, the same number of photons, is now spread out over a much larger area. The floor in any one spot within that ellipse receives less light, and therefore less energy, than the spot directly under the vertical beam. It appears dimmer and it feels less intense. This is the fundamental principle that governs the warmth of our planet. It is not magic, it is geometry. It is the difference between a concentrated dose of energy and a diluted one. Now let us scale this up to a celestial level. Our sun is the flashlight. Its output is constant, but the angle at which its rays strike any given part of the Earth is not. During the summer, for a hemisphere tilted toward the sun, the solar rays arrive from almost directly overhead. They are steep, concentrated. Think of the high noonday sun of July, casting short, dark shadows directly beneath our feet. In this scenario, the solar energy is focused on a relatively small area. It is like the vertical flashlight beam. The ground heats up quickly and efficiently. This concentrated energy is the primary reason for the warmth of summer. Now consider that same location in the winter. The hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. Now the sun never climbs high in the sky. It arcs low across the horizon even at its highest point at noon. Its rays arrive at a shallow glancing angle. They are like the tilted flashlight beam. The same amount of solar energy is now spread out thinly over a much wider swath of land. No single point receives as much warming power. The light feels weaker, paler, and it casts long, dramatic shadows. This is the essence of winter's chill. But the angle has a second, compounding effect. When sunlight enters our atmosphere at a shallow angle, it must travel through a much thicker layer of air to reach the ground. Imagine looking straight down through a pane of glass. You look right through it. Now look across the room through the edge of the same pane. It appears much thicker, and the view is distorted. So it is with our atmosphere. A low-angled winter sun must journey through more air molecules, more dust, more water vapor. Along this longer path, more of its energy is scattered, reflected and absorbed before it can even reach us. The blue light is scattered away, which is why winter sunrises and sunsets can be so vividly red, and why the winter sun often has a pale, washed-out quality. It is a filtered, diminished light by the time it touches your skin. This combination, the spreading of light over a larger area and the increased filtration through the atmosphere, is the direct physical consequence of the Earth's tilt. It is the reason why even on a perfectly clear, cloudless day in December, the sun feels weak and provides little warmth compared to a similar day in June. We can see this principle etched into the landscape itself. On the south-facing slope of a hill in the northern hemisphere, the sun's rays strike more directly. These slopes are often drier, warmer, and see the first melt of snow in spring. The north-facing slope, perpetually in a more shallow angle of light, remains cooler, shadier, and damper, often hosting different plants and holding on to snow long into the spring. This is the quiet, elegant mechanics of it all. The grand drama of the seasons of life and death in the natural world boils down to this simple, beautiful geometry of light. The tilt of our world changes the angle of the light, and the angle of the light determines the concentration of its energy. It is a reminder that the universe operates on principles that are, at their heart, understandable. There is a profound comfort in that. The chill of a winter's day is not a random curse, but a predictable outcome of our planet's dance. The heat of a summer afternoon is not a mere gift, but a precise delivery of concentrated stellar energy. So the next time you step outside, notice the length of your shadow. In the long, stretched-out shadows of winter, you are seeing the evidence of a diluted sun. In the short, stout shadows of summer, you are witnessing the power of a concentrated one. You are, in that moment, reading the angle of light and understanding the silent geometric language of the seasons. In our next chapter, we will see how this unequal distribution of the sun's energy, driven by the angle of light, divides our world into distinct climatic bands. But for now, simply appreciate the light itself, for in its angle lies the secret of our world's beautiful changing temper. We now understand the mechanism, the tilted axis, and the resulting angle of light that concentrates or dilutes the sun's constant energy. But this is not a local phenomenon. This simple, repeating tilt does not just give one town a summer and another a winter. It orchestrates a global system. It writes the fundamental rules of climate, dividing our world into bands of heat and cold, of lushness and austerity. Tonight, we explore how this unequal gift of sunlight carves the world itself. Before we contemplate these global patterns, I wish to pause and thank you. To see this community of thoughtful listeners grow is a source of quiet joy. If these explorations help you see the world with a deeper understanding, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. For those already sharing this journey, your presence is the stable climate in which this channel thrives. Now let us pull our perspective back to see the whole Earth at once. The sun's energy is constant and impartial, but our tilted spherical planet is a biased receiver. Because of the curvature of the Earth and the fixed nature of the tilt, the sun's rays do not and cannot strike every latitude with the same intensity at the same time. The equatorial regions, forever situated midway between the poles, are perpetually presented to the sun at a near-direct angle. Here, the concentrated beam of solar energy is a daily reality. This relentless overhead sun is the engine of the tropics, driving immense evaporation, fueling vast rainforests and maintaining a steady, warm temperature year-round. It is a place of energy abundance, but as we travel away from the equator, north or south, the story changes. The curvature of the Earth means that the same beam of sunlight begins to spread out over a larger and larger area. The energy that was concentrated at the equator becomes diluted. The further we go, the lower the sun hangs in the sky, even on its highest day, and the more slanted its rays become. This creates a fundamental and permanent imbalance. There is a net surplus of solar energy in the tropics, which receives more heat than it loses back to space. And there is a net deficit of energy at the poles, which, with their low-angled, weak sunlight, lose more heat than they gain. The world is not in thermal balance. If this were the end of the story, the tropics would grow perpetually hotter, boiling away into a permanent steam, while the poles would plunge into ever deeper, more absolute cold. But our planet is a dynamic, fluid system. It has a magnificent system of redistribution. This imbalance is the primary driver of our planet's weather and ocean currents. It is the reason the wind blows and the great ocean conveyor belt circulates. The atmosphere and the oceans act as a global heat engine. The warm, light air and water from the tropics rise and flow poleward, carrying their surplus heat with them. Meanwhile, the cold, dense air and water from the poles sink and flow equatorward, moderating the tropical heat. Our storms, our prevailing winds like the trade winds and the westerlies, the great currents like the Gulf Stream, all are, at their heart, a consequence of this planetary effort to balance the unequal gift of sunlight. The seasons we feel are simply the annual oscillation of this global system, a pulse in the planet's great, rhythmic heartbeat. This tilt-driven imbalance also carves our world into distinct climatic zones. The tropics, between 23.5 degrees north and south, are the only places on Earth that can experience the direct overhead sun. This defines their character. Then come the temperate zones, from about 23.5 degrees to 66.5 degrees in both hemispheres. Here, the sun's angle changes dramatically throughout the year, from high in the summer to low in the winter. This is the realm of the 4 distinct seasons, of deciduous forests that lose their leaves, of agriculture that follows an annual cycle of planting and harvest. It is a world of change, dictated by the tilt. Finally, beyond 66.5 degrees lie the polar zones. Here, the imbalance is most extreme. For at least one day each year, the tilt is so pronounced that the sun does not set at all, the famous midnight sun. And conversely, for at least one day, it does not rise, the profound polar night. These are lands of climatic extremity, where life clings on in the face of an energy deficit so great that it builds permanent ice caps. This is the true power of the 23.5 degree tilt. It is not merely a switch that turns summer on and off. It is a sculptor of global climate. It determines which parts of the world will be drenched in consistent energy, which will experience a rhythmic cycle of abundance and scarcity, and which will exist in a state of perpetual energy poverty. It dictates where rainforests can grow, where deserts can form in the dry, descending air of the subtropics and where tundra can persist. It has guided the evolution of life, the migration of animals, and the spread of human civilizations who have always clustered in the temperate and tropical zones where the sun's gift, while unequal, is most reliable for survival. So, when you look at a world map, you are not just looking at shapes of land and sea. You are looking at a diagram of solar reception. You are seeing the legacy of a tilt, the lush green of the Amazon, the golden wheat of the American plains, the blinding white of Antarctica, all are direct expressions of how the angle of sunlight, orchestrated by our planet's lean, divides the world. In our next chapter, we will draw the lines on the map that mark the boundaries of this solar dance, the tropics and the polar circles. But for now, simply hold this thought. The wind on your face, the current in the ocean, the very climate of your home, all begin with a simple, unequal distribution of light. A gift that is given generously to some, sparingly to others, setting the entire world in motion to find its balance. Welcome back to our cartography of the cosmos. We have seen how the tilted Earth creates an imbalance of light and warmth, dividing our world into broad bands of climate. But nature adores precision even in its grandest designs. The chaos of weather and the diversity of landscape are framed by lines of celestial certainty. Tonight we trace these lines, the invisible latitudes etched not by human hands, but by the geometry of a planet leaning in its orbit around the sun. Before we chart these celestial boundaries, I want to express my gratitude for your company on this journey. If tracing these imaginary lines brings a sense of order and wonder to your understanding of our world, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. To our fellow travelers already here, your presence helps us navigate this vast topic. Thank you. Now let us turn to the map. The most fundamental of these lines is the equator, the great circle of 0 degrees latitude. It is the planet's belt, an equal divider of the hemispheres. But the lines that truly sing the song of the seasons lie to its north and south. They are the children of the 23.5 degree tilt. Let us journey north first to 23.5 degrees north latitude. Here we find a line that has guided navigators and defined climates for all of human history, the Tropic of Cancer. It is not a line one can see on the ground. You cannot stand on a beach and point to it, but its presence is felt in the sun itself. The Tropic of Cancer marks the northernmost latitude where the sun can ever appear directly overhead. This occurs on a single day each year, the June solstice. On that day, the North Pole is tilted maximally toward the sun, and the sun's vertical rays shine down upon this line. It is the sun's northern zenith. To go further north than this line is to enter a realm where the sun, no matter how high it climbs in summer, will always be south of directly overhead. Now, let us travel an equal distance south of the equator to 23.5 degrees south. Here runs the Tropic of Capricorn, the mirror of its northern sibling. It is the southernmost line where the sun can be directly overhead, an event that occurs on the December solstice, when the South Pole leans sunward. Between these two lines, in the band known as the tropics, the sun passes directly overhead twice a year. This is the realm of the most direct and consistent solar energy on Earth, the home of the tropical climates. But the tilt writes another set of lines marking the boundaries of the most extreme seasonal phenomena. Let us voyage much further north to 66.5 degrees north latitude. This is the Arctic Circle. This line does not mark the overhead sun, but rather the limit of the midnight sun and the polar night. Because of the 23.5 degree tilt, anywhere north of this line will experience at least one 24-hour period in summer when the sun does not set, and one 24-hour period in winter when the sun does not rise. The same phenomenon occurs in the south at the Antarctic Circle at 66.5 degrees south. These circles are the gates to the polar realms. They are the lines beyond which the simple rhythm of daily sunrise and sunset is for a time suspended. They mark the lands of eternal summer day and profound winter night. Why 23.5 and 66.5? The numbers are two sides of the same coin. The axial tilt is 23.5 degrees. The tropic lines are drawn at that angle from the equator, marking the sun's maximum declination. The polar circles are drawn at its complement, 90 minus 23.5, which is 66.5 degrees from the equator. They mark the latitude beyond which the central 24-hour-long day or night becomes possible. It is a perfect, immutable geometric relationship. These lines are not static in the grand scale of time. Our planet wobbles very slowly on its axis in a cycle of about 26,000 years, a motion known as precession. This means that over millennia, the position of these lines very gradually shifts against the landscape. The North Pole today points to Polaris, but in ancient Egyptian times it pointed toward Thuban. The tropics and circles are in a slow cosmic drift, but within a human lifetime they are fixed, dependable boundaries. They are in essence the signature of our planet's tilt upon the map. They are the fundamental architecture upon which the tapestry of climate is woven. The Tropic of Cancer often marks the northern edge of the world's great deserts. The Arctic Circle defines the southern limit of the vast boreal forest and the realm of the permafrost. To know that you are standing on the Tropic of Cancer is to know that you are at a place of solar extremity, a line where the sun, once a year, stands perfectly vertical. To cross the Arctic Circle is to enter a land where the rules of day and night are rewritten by the lean of the earth. So, the next time you see a world map, look for these quiet, imaginary lines. See the Tropic of Cancer passing through the deserts of Arabia and the heart of Mexico. See the Tropic of Capricorn crossing the outback of Australia and the plains of Chile. See the Arctic Circle encompassing the northern reaches of Scandinavia and Alaska. They are more than just markings. They are a constant reminder of our planet's place and posture in space. They are the lines that separate the perpetual summer of the tropics from the shifting seasons of the temperate zones, and the temperate zones from the extreme light and dark of the polar realms. In our next chapter, we will pause at the moments of perfect balance between these extremes. But for now, simply appreciate the elegant geometry that frames our world, a set of instructions from the cosmos, written in light and latitude. We have journeyed to the extremes, the zenith sun at the tropics, the endless day at the circles. But between these solstice peaks, the year holds two moments of profound celestial equilibrium. Moments when light and dark, north and south, stand in perfect fleeting balance. Tonight, we pause at the equinox. Before we contemplate this balance, I wish to thank you for sharing this quiet space. If these reflections bring a sense of harmony to your understanding of the world, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to The Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your presence brings a wonderful balance to this channel. Thank you. Now let us witness the equinox. The word itself comes from the Latin equus, equal, and nox, night. On the two equinoxes, one around March 20th and the other around September 22nd, day and night are nearly equal in length across the entire globe. From the bustling cities of the temperate zone to the quiet villages on the equator, every place experiences close to 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness. The science of this is as elegant as it is beautiful. The equinox occurs at the precise moment when the Earth's axis is tilted neither toward nor away from the sun. Imagine our tilted dancer circling the spotlight. There are only 2 points in the entire orbit where the dancer's lean is perfectly sideways to the light. At these moments, the sun's most direct rays shine exactly upon the equator. The great circle of illumination, the line separating day from night, passes directly through the north and south poles. From the perspective of someone standing on the equator, the sun would pass almost directly overhead at noon. But for someone at any other latitude, the sun arcs across the sky precisely along the celestial equator. It rises due east and sets due west everywhere on Earth. There is a geometric purity to this day that exists at no other time. The world for a moment is perfectly aligned. This astronomical event is not a long period, but a single, fleeting moment in time, the instant the sun crosses the celestial equator. Yet its influence is felt for days as the lengths of day and night hover in their delicate balance. But the equinox is more than just a celestial alignment. It is one of the most powerful symbols in all of human experience. It is a symbol of balance, of transition, and of the fundamental equality that underlies all apparent opposites. The March, or vernal, equinox in the northern hemisphere has long been a signal of rebirth. It is the moment winter's grip is decisively broken. The ancients did not need calendars. They watched the sun's path and saw it returning, bringing life back to the frozen earth. This is the origin of countless spring festivals, Nowruz, Passover, Easter, all celebrating themes of renewal, victory of light over darkness, and the return of life. It is a time of planting, of new beginnings, of shaking off the introspection of winter. Conversely, the September or autumnal equinox signals the opposite transition. It is a time of harvest, of gathering, of preparing for the inward turn. The balance here is not a prelude to increasing light, but to increasing dark. There is a gentle melancholy to it, a beautiful sadness in the equal day and night, for we know the darkness is soon to win. It is a time to reap what has been sown, both in the fields and in our own lives. Cultures across the world mark this time with harvest festivals, the Chinese Mid-Autumn Festival, Mabon, giving thanks for the abundance of the sun-filled summer, even as they prepare for the scarcity of winter. The equinox reminds us that balance is not a permanent state, but a pivot point. It is a momentary stillness in the midst of constant motion. We cannot hold on to the balance of the equinox any more than we can hold on to the perfect, horizontal position of a swinging pendulum. It is a point of passage, a doorway between two states of being. This is a profound lesson. In our own lives, we strive for balance between work and rest, action and reflection, giving and receiving. The equinox teaches us that such perfect equilibrium is fleeting. It is a point we pass through on our way from one season of life to another, and that is its beauty. It does not demand that we remain in balance, but that we recognize and honor the moments of balance when they naturally occur. There is also a deep, humbling democracy to the equinox. On this day, a billionaire in a penthouse and a farmer in a field both receive exactly the same amount of sunlight. The bustling metropolis and the silent remote island experience the same length of day. For one global moment, the planet treats all its inhabitants and all its places with perfect equality. So, when an equinox comes, take a moment to notice. Feel the quality of the light. See the sun rise and set along an east-west line. Feel the crispness in the air of the autumn equinox, or the gentle warmth of the spring one. In that noticing, you are connecting with a rhythm that has governed life on this planet for billions of years. You are witnessing a celestial handshake between light and dark, a promise that neither will ever permanently vanquish the other. It is the universe's way of pausing, taking a breath, and then continuing on its beautiful, tilted, and predictable path. In our next chapter, we will leave this balance behind and journey toward the peak of light, the summer solstice. But for now, let us rest in this moment of equilibrium, a quiet reminder that even in a universe of constant change, there are points of perfect poetic balance. We have passed through the balanced gate of the equinox, where light and dark stood equal. Now we arrive at the moment of light's supreme triumph, the day of longest light, of shortest shadows, of the sun at its most commanding height. This is the summer solstice, the zenith of the solar year. Before we bask in this abundance of light, I want to thank you for climbing this far with me. If these explorations help you feel more connected to the rhythms of the sky, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to The Sleepy Geographer. To our fellow sun watchers already here, your support is a constant source of warmth. Thank you. Now let us stand in the full glare of the solstice. The word solstice comes from the Latin sol, sun, and sistere, to stand still. And this is precisely what happens. In the days leading up to and following the solstice, around June 21st in the northern hemisphere, the sun's path across the sky appears to reach its maximum height, and then it pauses. The point of sunrise and sunset halt their northward march along the horizon. For a few days, the sun seems to stand still in its northernmost position, as if holding a breath at the summit of its annual climb, before reluctantly beginning its slow descent toward winter. This is the day when the North Pole is tilted at its maximum toward the sun, a full 23.5 degrees. The sun's direct rays shine not on the equator, but on the Tropic of Cancer, that imaginary line we traced in a previous chapter. For any location north of the equator, this is the day the sun climbs highest in the sky. Its noon position is as close to directly overhead as it will ever be. The light falls from a near vertical angle, concentrating its energy, baking the earth, and casting short, stout shadows that seem to hide from the intensity. The most profound gift of the solstice is, of course, the light itself. This is the longest day and the shortest night of the year. In London, the sun is up for over 16 hours. In Edinburgh, closer to 17 and a half. And north of the Arctic Circle, the sun does not set at all, circling the sky in a 24-hour-long golden day. The world is drenched in light. The evenings are long and languid, twilight lingering as if reluctant to surrender to the brief darkness. There is an expansiveness to time itself, a feeling that the day is endless, full of potential and energy. This peak of light has been felt and celebrated by humans for millennia. It is a time of abundance, of life in full, vibrant expression. The crops are growing vigorously, the forests are a thick green canopy, and the air hums with the activity of insects and birds. Ancient cultures understood the power of this day. They built monuments to capture this moment of celestial extremity. At Stonehenge, the rising sun on the summer solstice aligns perfectly with the heel stone, flooding the central altar with light. It was a reassurance, a confirmation that the cosmic order was intact, that the sun's life-giving power had reached its peak and would not abandon them. The solstice is a festival of fire and light. Bonfires were lit on hilltops across Europe, not for warmth, but in sympathetic magic, to mimic and strengthen the sun, to encourage it to remain powerful. It was a night for gathering, for celebrating fertility and the fullness of the land. Midsummer's Eve is steeped in folklore, a time when the veil between worlds was thin, when fairies were abroad, and when magic was most potent. It is a time of joy, of community, and of unbridled celebration of life at its most prolific. But woven into this celebration is a subtle, poignant truth. The summer solstice is not the beginning of summer, but its peak. It is the tipping point. From this day forward, the days will imperceptibly begin to shorten. The sun's arc will slowly lower. The knowledge that this glorious abundance of light is the beginning of its own decline lends a bitter-sweet intensity to the day. We are celebrating at the summit with the entire descent back into autumn and winter lying ahead. It is a reminder that all peaks are transitions, and that maximum light contains the seed of its own departure. This is the deep symbolism of the solstice, the triumph of light. Yes, but also the acceptance of the cycle. It teaches us to celebrate fully in the moment, to bask in the abundance we have precisely because we know it is fleeting. It is a call to action, to grow, to create, to be active and outward while the energy is at its height. So, on the day of the summer solstice, step outside. Feel the sun on your skin not as a gentle warmth, but as a direct, concentrated force. Notice the quality of the shadows at noon, so small and precise. Stay out in the long evening and watch the slow, reluctant fade of the sky. In that moment, you are participating in a ritual as old as humanity itself. You are bearing witness to the sun at its zenith, acknowledging its power and feeling the profound, beautiful melancholy of knowing that from this height, the only way forward is down, but that is a story for another season. For now, let us simply be present in the full, glorious and triumphant light of the longest day. We have stood at the bright peak of the summer solstice, bathed in abundant light. Now we descend into its opposite, the still, dark heart of the cycle. This is the winter solstice, the day of least light, but also, paradoxically, the day of greatest hope. Before we gather in this stillness, I want to thank you for your companionship through the seasons. If this journey into the quiet mechanics of our world brings you solace, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. To those already here sharing this space, your presence is a light in the dark. Thank you. Now let us embrace the solstice. Around December 21st in the Northern Hemisphere, the Earth's journey brings it to the point where the North Pole is tilted at its maximum, 23.5 degrees, away from the Sun. This is the lowest ebb. The Sun's direct rays fall not on the equator, but on the Tropic of Capricorn, far to the south. For those of us in the north, the sun never climbs high. It arcs low weakly across the southern horizon, casting long, stretched-out shadows that seem to dominate the day. This is the shortest day and the longest night of the year. In many northern cities, daylight lasts for only 7 or 8 hours. The sun rises late and sets early, and its light, even at noon, is thin and pale, diluted by its long, shallow path through the atmosphere. North of the Arctic Circle, the sun does not rise at all. There is only a brief twilight glow at midday, a mere suggestion of the sun's presence beyond the curve of the earth. The world feels hushed, dormant, held in a cold, still breath. To our ancient ancestors, this was a time of genuine fear. The sun, the source of all life, was weakening, dying before their eyes. Each day grew shorter, the nights longer and colder. Would it continue to fade until it vanished entirely, leaving the world in perpetual frozen night? They did not have our astronomical certainty. They watched the horizon with a desperate hope, and so they created rituals to call the sun back. They built monuments to capture this moment of reversal. At Newgrange in Ireland, a tomb older than Stonehenge or the pyramids, a narrow passage is aligned so that for a few days around the winter solstice, the rising sun's rays pierce the inner chamber, flooding a space meant for the dead with the light of the reborn sun. It was a powerful symbol of life emerging from death, of light returning from the darkest place. This is the profound secret of the winter solstice. The word solstice means sun stand still, and at the winter solstice, the sun's progress southward does indeed halt. It pauses on the horizon, and then, imperceptibly at first, it begins its journey back north. The light turns. The deepest darkness is not an end but a turning point. It is the pivot of the year. From this day forward, the days will begin to lengthen. The light will return minute by minute each day. This is why, across cultures, the winter solstice is not a funeral for the sun, but a birthday. It is a celebration of rebirth. The Romans celebrated Saturnalia, a festival of light and gift-giving. The Norse celebrated Yule, burning a great Yule log to symbolize the returning warmth and light. Our own modern Christmas with its lights, its evergreen trees symbolizing enduring life, and its themes of hope and birth is deeply rooted in this ancient solar celebration. The winter solstice teaches us the necessity of rest and introspection. The natural world is not dead but dormant. Life has retreated into roots and seeds, conserving its energy, waiting for the signal to return. This is a time for us too to turn inward, to slow down, to reflect in the long, quiet nights. It is a time for stories, for warmth gathered around a hearth, for gratitude for the shelter we have and the food we have stored. The darkness is not something to be feared, but a blanket under which the world and we can dream and restore ourselves. There is a deep, quiet courage in celebrating the winter solstice. It is an act of faith. We are celebrating the return of the light at the very moment when the darkness is most complete. We are planting a seed of hope in the frozen ground. We are choosing to believe in a promise, the promise that the cycle will continue, that growth will follow rest, that light will always follow dark. So on the day of the winter solstice, make a point to notice. Feel the quality of the brief day, the low angle of the sun. Embrace the early darkness. Light a candle. Its small, defiant flame is a perfect mirror of the solstice itself. A tiny point of warmth and light holding its own against the immense dark. A personal celebration of the sun's return. For in that simple act, you are connecting with countless generations before you who watched the horizon with the same hope. You are acknowledging the depth of the cycle and trusting in its turn. The winter solstice is the profound, beautiful proof that even at the lowest point, the direction can change. The light always turns. We have passed through the deep stillness of the winter solstice, witnessed the light's slow return. Now we arrive at a season not of dramatic peaks, but of quiet, tender revelations. This is the spring, the great and gradual unfolding, a slow exhale after winter's long hold. Before we step softly into this new growth, I want to thank you for your presence here. If these quiet observations help you notice the subtle wonders of the world, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your companionship is like the first warm rain, nurturing this channel's growth. Thank you. Now let us walk into the spring. Spring is a shoulder season, a time of transition nestled between the stark opposites of winter and summer. It does not arrive with a single triumphant fanfare, but with 1,000 small, quiet announcements. It begins not with a temperature, but with a sound, the steady, rhythmic drip, drip, drip of melting snow. It is a feeling, the sun on your skin, no longer just a source of light, but a source of tangible warmth once again. It is a scent, the rich, wet, deeply alive smell of the earth thawing, a fragrance known as petrichor, the breath of the soil after its long sleep. The most profound change is in the light. Having crossed the equinox, the days are now visibly longer than the nights. The sun climbs higher each day, and its angle loses its winter weakness, gaining a strength that actively works to dismantle the remnants of frost. This increasing light is the primary conductor of the spring orchestra, cueing each section to join in at its appointed time. The first performers are often the most subtle. In the woods, the floor may still be covered in last year's brown leaves, but if you look closely, you might see the brave, spear-like tips of snowdrops or the curled fists of skunk cabbage pushing through the cold ground. The trees, which seemed so lifeless and skeletal against the grey winter sky, now reveal a faint red or yellow haze around their twigs, the buds swelling with the potential of leaves and flowers, a promise held tightly within tiny scaled casings. Then comes the color. It starts not with the riotous greens of summer, but with soft, surprising points of brilliance, a cluster of purple crocuses defiant in a patch of lingering snow, the brilliant yellow of a forsythia bush, like a captured piece of sunlight, the delicate white petals of the wood anemone, trembling in the still, chilly breeze. These early flowers are life's pioneers, risking a late frost to seize the opportunity of the strengthening sun. The animal world stirs in harmony with this botanical reawakening. The silence of winter is broken by the tentative songs of returning birds. First, a single robin on a lawn, cocking its head to listen for worms in the softening earth. Then the chorus builds, the cheerful chatter of sparrows, the clear, fluting song of a blackbird at dusk. Insects, dormant or in larval stages, begin to emerge, buzzing lazily in the sunbeams. Life is returning, not all at once, but in a carefully sequenced procession. For humans, spring has always been a time of powerful metaphor and practical action. It is the season of hope, of new beginnings, of cleaning out the old and making way for the new. The ancient urge to clean our homes in spring is a mirror of the world outside, shedding the clutter of winter. It is the time for planting, an act of profound faith, placing a dormant seed into the earth with the absolute belief that the sun and rain will coax it into abundance. There is a palpable sense of rising energy. The world feels like it is waking up from a long, deep sleep. There is a restlessness in the air, a feeling that anything is possible. The very sap rises in the trees, and a similar vitality seems to rise in us. We feel an urge to be outside, to walk, to breathe the fresh, cool air, to feel the sun on our faces after the long confinement of winter. But spring is not a frantic race. It is a slow, patient unfurling. A leaf does not burst forth fully formed. It slowly unwraps itself from its bud, delicate, wrinkled and pale green, before gradually expanding and deepening in color. A stream, freed from its icy covering, does not immediately run clear, but flows muddy and swift with the meltwater of 1,000 small thawings. This gradual pace is its own kind of wisdom. Spring teaches us patience. It reminds us that true growth cannot be rushed. It happens in its own time, according to the ancient, reliable rhythms of light and temperature. It asks us to be observant, to notice the small changes, to find joy not in a finished product, but in the very process of becoming. So in these weeks of spring, make a point to be a quiet witness. Find a single tree and visit it every few days. Watch the slow-motion explosion of its buds into leaves. Notice the progression of flowers in a field, from the earliest dandelions to the later buttercups. Listen for the return of a familiar bird call you haven't heard since autumn. In doing so, you are not just observing nature. You are synchronizing your own spirit with the most hopeful rhythm of the year. You are remembering that after every period of rest and stillness comes a time of gentle, persistent, and beautiful reawakening. Spring is the earth's quiet, confident proof that life is resilient, and that light, once it has turned, always leads to growth. We have passed through the vibrant energy of summer, and now we arrive at its beautiful, bittersweet conclusion. This is autumn, the season of a slow and glorious farewell, a time of letting go painted in the most breathtaking colors. Before we walk together through this landscape of memory, I want to thank you for your presence on this journey through the seasons. If this quiet contemplation of nature's cycles brings you a sense of peace, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to The Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your companionship is a constant, like the enduring evergreen in the autumn wood. Thank you. Now let us step into the fall. Autumn is the second shoulder season, a long, slow transition from the abundance of summer to the austerity of winter. It does not begin on a specific day, but announces itself in a series of subtle sensations. It is a certain sharpness in the morning air, a chill that was absent just a week before. It is the changing quality of the light, lower, more golden, casting long, dramatic shadows that stretch across fields in the late afternoon. It is the smell of wood smoke beginning to scent the evening, a fragrant promise of warmth against the coming cold. The most spectacular herald of autumn is, of course, the colour. This transformation is not a sign of death, as is often said, but a process of elegant retirement. Throughout the spring and summer, the green chlorophyll in the leaves has been working tirelessly, capturing sunlight to feed the tree. Now, with the days shortening and the temperatures dropping, the tree begins to seal off the connection between leaf and branch. The green chlorophyll breaks down and vanishes, revealing the colours that were there all along, the vibrant yellows of xanthophyll, the bold oranges of carotene, the brilliant reds of anthocyanin produced as a final, splendid chemical farewell. The forest becomes a cathedral of fire. Walking through it, one is surrounded by a silent, radiant blaze. It is a beauty that is inherently transient, which makes it all the more precious. We know this glory is brief. A strong wind, a heavy rain, and this golden canopy will be stripped away, leaving the elegant skeletal architecture of the trees exposed once more. This theme of release is everywhere. The trees are letting go of their leaves. The fields have given up their harvest, standing as stubbled reminders of plenty, and the animals are engaged in their own forms of release and preparation. Squirrels frantically gather and bury nuts, a frantic investment in the future. Birds gather in great, chattering flocks, their restlessness palpable before they launch themselves into the immense, dangerous journey of migration. Their haunting cries, echoing from a grey sky, are the very sound of departure. For humans, autumn has always been a time of both celebration and introspection. It is the season of the harvest moon, a time to gather in the literal and metaphorical fruits of the summer's labour. It is a time for thanksgiving, for feasts, for storing away provisions for the lean months ahead. There is a deep, primal satisfaction in this gathering, a feeling of security earned through hard work. But as the harvest ends, a different mood settles in. The world is growing quiet. The frantic buzz of insect life has stilled. The vibrant greens have faded to gold and then to brown. There is undeniable melancholy in the air. The year is dying. This melancholy, however, is not a despairing one. It is a gentle, reflective sadness, the feeling that comes with the end of any meaningful chapter, a farewell, a finished book, a last look at a beloved place. It invites us to slow down, to turn inward, to reflect on what we have accomplished and what we have lost in the passing year. Autumn teaches us the beauty and necessity of letting go. The tree does not cling to its dead leaves. It releases them, allowing them to fall and decay, returning their nutrients to the soil to feed future growth. This is a vital lesson in non-attachment. To hold on to what is past its time is to block the cycle of renewal. Autumn shows us that release can be a spectacular, peaceful, and natural process. There is a profound clarity to this season. With the leaves gone, the views open up, revealing distant hills and the structure of the land that was hidden by summer's lushness. It is a metaphor for our own lives. Sometimes we see more clearly once the distracting foliage of our busyness has fallen away. So in these autumn days, make time to be present with the farewell. Walk through a carpet of crisp leaves and listen to their rustle. Breathe in the scent of decay, which is not an ending, but a promise of soil and future life. Feel the sun's weakening warmth on your face and acknowledge the turning of the cycle. Let the melancholy settle in you, not as a burden, but as a quiet companion. For this poignant awareness of time's passage is what gives the moment its deep, resonant beauty. Autumn is the world's way of showing us that endings can be glorious, that release is a part of life, and that there is a deep, quiet wisdom in learning how to say goodbye. It is the beautiful, necessary pause between the bright story of summer and the silent poetry of winter. In our journey, we have touched upon the constant heat of the tropics and the extreme light of the poles. But for many of us, the true definition of a year is found here, in the middle grounds. This is the temperate realm, the belt between the tropics and the polar circles, where the celestial dance translates into 4 distinct, beloved acts: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Before we walk through this familiar cycle, I want to thank you for your continued companionship. If this exploration of the world's rhythms feels like a conversation with an old friend, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, sharing this path, your presence is the changing scenery that makes the journey worthwhile. Thank you. Now let us come home to the temperate world. Stretching roughly from the Tropic of Cancer to the Arctic Circle in the north, and from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Antarctic Circle in the south, the temperate zones are the planetary stage for the classic quartet of seasons. This is not a land of subtle shifts between wet and dry, nor of a single endless day or night. This is a realm of profound transformation, a world that truly sleeps, awakens, thrives, and prepares in a relentless, beautiful cycle. The experience here is one of dynamic equilibrium. The 23.5-degree tilt of Earth's axis ensures that the sun's angle and the length of daylight change dramatically over the year. It is this pronounced swing from the high, strong sun of summer to the low, weak sun of winter that carves the year into 4 distinct chapters, each with its own character, its own light, its own scent, and its own demands on life. Spring here is not a suggestion, but a revolution. It is the great thaw, the unlocking of the land. After months of cold stillness, the world seems to shudder and then burst into motion. Snow melts into rivulets, feeding streams that rush with snowmelt. The ground, once frozen hard, softens into mud. And from this wet, brown canvas, colour erupts with urgent optimism. It is a season of pastels and delicate greens, of choruses of birdsong reclaiming territories, and a palpable sense of relief and anticipation in the air. Summer is the season of abundance, of full-throated life. The sun is high and dominant, the days are long and languid. The landscape wears its deepest, most confident green. Forests form dense, shady canopies, and fields sway with tall grasses and flowers. This is the time of growth and activity, of insects buzzing, of young animals testing their legs, of crops racing towards harvest. The air is thick with the smells of warm soil, cut grass, and blooming linden trees. It is a generous, expansive, and sometimes overwhelming season. Then comes autumn, the great, slow exhalation. The frantic energy of summer dissipates. The light softens to a honeyed gold, and the world sets itself on fire in a final, spectacular display. This is a season of both celebration and melancholy. The harvest is brought in, a reward for the summer's labour, but it is also a time of letting go. The brilliant leaves fall, creating a crisp, rustling carpet. The air turns sharp, and the scent of wood smoke and decay carries a poignant reminder of impermanence. It is a deeply philosophical season, inviting reflection. And finally, winter arrives, the season of stillness and rest. The world is stripped bare, revealing the elegant bones of the land, the architecture of trees, the contours of hills. A deep quiet descends, broken only by the crunch of snow underfoot and the whisper of the wind. Life retreats, conserves, and waits. For humans, it is a time of turning inward, of seeking warmth and light against the outer dark, of storytelling and quiet companionship. The blanket of snow is not a shroud, but a protective cover, insulating the earth and its hidden potential. This 4-act play is the rhythm that has shaped the cultures agriculture, and even the psychology of the temperate world. Our literature, our music, our art, and our festivals are deeply tied to this cycle. We plant in the faith of spring, we rejoice in the bounty of summer, we give thanks in the harvest of autumn, and we endure and dream through the test of winter. It is a rhythm of constant, reassuring change. It teaches us about time, about patience, about the beauty of both abundance and scarcity. To live in the temperate realm is to be in a constant, conscious relationship with the sky, the sun, and the turning earth. So, wherever you are in this vast and varied belt, take a moment to feel the season you are in. Notice its unique light, its signature sounds, its particular mood. In doing so, you are not just observing the weather, you are feeling the pulse of the planet itself, a steady, predictable, and endlessly beautiful beat in the great, turning heart of the temperate world. We leave behind the four-act play of the temperate world and journey now into the planet's warm, beating heart, the tropical realm. Here, nestled between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, the concept of spring, summer, autumn, and winter dissolves. The sun is always high, the days are always nearly 12 hours long, and the temperature is consistently warm. But this does not mean the year is monotonous. Instead, the seasons are dictated not by temperature, but by the sky. This is the world of the wet and the dry. Before we immerse ourselves in this lush landscape, I want to thank you for venturing this far with me. If exploring these different global rhythms expands your sense of our world's diversity, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your curiosity is a constant source of energy, much like the tropical sun. Thank you. Now let us step into the embrace of the tropics. The most dominant feature of the tropical climate is consistency. The sun's path varies little throughout the year, always passing high overhead, or very nearly so. This constant, direct angle provides a tremendous and steady input of solar energy. The result is a world where life is not battling the cold, but is instead engaged in a relentless, vibrant competition for light and space. This is the realm of the tropical rainforest, the most biodiverse places on Earth, where trees tower, plants drip from every branch, and the air itself feels thick and alive. However, this abundance is not evenly distributed through the year. The true pendulum of the tropical year is not temperature, but rain. The tilt of the Earth's axis, which gives the temperate world its hot and cold seasons, gives the tropics its wet and dry seasons. This happens through a global weather system called the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ. Think of it as a belt of clouds and thunderstorms that encircles the globe, following the area of most intense surface heating, the thermal equator. As the Earth orbits the Sun, the zone of most direct rays shifts northward to the Tropic of Cancer around the June solstice, and southward to the Tropic of Capricorn around the December solstice. The Great Rain Belt of the ITCZ migrates with it. This migration creates a dramatic rhythm. When the ITCZ is overhead, it is the wet season. The skies are often overcast, the humidity is oppressive, and rainfall is a daily, sometimes hourly, event. It does not drizzle. It pours. Great, drenching, torrential downpours that flood streets, swell rivers, and bring the landscape to a fever pitch of growth. This is a time of explosive life, of frantic flowering and fruiting, of fungi sprouting overnight, and of the forest canopy closing in to form a deep green twilight at ground level. Then the ITCZ moves on. As it migrates away, the dry season arrives. The clouds part, the sun beats down with an intense clear light, and the air becomes drier. The daily deluges cease. Rivers shrink back into their channels, and some may disappear entirely. The land begins to parch. In the savannas, the grasses turn gold and then brown, and waterholes become vital, crowded gathering points for wildlife. In the rainforests, the downpours become less frequent, offering a brief respite from the constant damp. This cycle of deluge and drought is the fundamental pulse of life in the tropics.
The adaptations are everywhere.
Deciduous trees in the tropical dry forests lose their leaves not because of cold, but to conserve water during the drought. Many animals time their breeding to the wet season, ensuring their young have ample food and water. The famous Serengeti migration is a direct response to the search for fresh grass and water, a slow grazing circuit following the pattern of the rains. For humans, this rhythm has dictated agriculture and culture for millennia.
Life is organized around the coming of the rains.
Planting must be perfectly timed to coincide with the start of the wet season to ensure crops can germinate and grow. Great civilizations like the ancient Maya developed complex calendars and water management systems to harness the downpours and survive the dry months. Festivals often mark the longed-for arrival of the first rains, a celebration of life and renewal. To live in the tropics is to live by the rhythm of water. The year is not a story of warmth versus cold, but of abundance versus conservation, of growth versus endurance. The dry season is not a time of death, but a time of waiting, of drawing on deep roots and stored resources. The wet season is not a gentle nurturing, but a glorious, overwhelming and life-giving explosion. So the next time you imagine the tropics, do not picture a single, static postcard of a beach. See it as a dynamic land of two faces, one of overflowing, dripping green vitality, and another of sun-baked golden austerity. It is a realm where the seasons are written not in the angle of the light, but in the gift of the rain, a powerful, pulsing rhythm in the heart of our world. We have left behind the rhythmic pulse of the tropics and the familiar quartet of the temperate zones. Here, within the Arctic and Antarctic circles, the concept of a daily sunrise and sunset is suspended. This is the land of the polar extremes, a world defined by the midnight sun and the polar night. Before we venture into this stark and beautiful landscape, I want to thank you for your courage in exploring these remote ideas. If contemplating the planet's extremes brings a deeper appreciation for its diversity, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to The Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your support helps illuminate even the darkest of topics. Thank you. Now let us journey to the poles. The experience here is the most direct and profound consequence of the Earth's 23.5-degree tilt. Because the planet leans, there are periods when each pole is angled continuously toward the sun, and others when it is angled continuously away. This simple fact rewrites the fundamental rules of day and night. Let us first stand at a point north of the Arctic Circle during the week surrounding the June solstice. Here, the North Pole is tilted maximally toward the sun, and from this vantage point, the sun, in its daily circuit, never dips below the horizon. It circles the sky for 24 hours, a relentless, low-hanging golden orb that merely grazes the northern horizon at midnight before rising again. This is the midnight sun. The quality of light is surreal. The world is bathed in a perpetual, warm, golden hour glow. Time loses its meaning. The usual signals for sleep, darkness, are absent. Life is lived in a continuous, dreamlike present. The landscape, if it is summer, responds with a frantic, compressed burst of life. In the Arctic tundra, the permafrost melts at the surface, and a carpet of hardy wildflowers, mosses and lichens erupts in a brilliant, short-lived bloom. Insects swarm, and birds arrive in the millions to nest and raise their young in the 24-hour buffet of light and life. But this endless day is only one half of the story. 6 months later, around the December solstice, the situation reverses. The North Pole is now tilted maximally away from the sun, and for a period, the sun never rises. This is the polar night. This is not utter blackness. For a few hours around noon, a faint, twilight glow may illuminate the southern horizon, a deep, ethereal blue that hints at a sun just beyond the curve. of the Earth. But it is a world without shadows, without warmth, without the defining star of our solar system. The temperature plummets and the land is locked in a deep, profound freeze. The silence is absolute, broken only by the crack of ice and the haunting calls of the few animals, like the Arctic fox or the polar bear, that remain to hunt in the darkness. The psychological impact of this is immense. For the communities who call these regions home, the polar night is a time of introspection, of community, and of resilience.
Life turns inward.
And then after weeks or months of darkness, the day of the sun's return is met with immense celebration, a confirmation that the cycle continues, that the light has once again triumphed. In the Antarctic, the cycle is the same, but inverted and often more severe. The South Pole experiences its midnight sun during the December solstice and its polar night during the June solstice. But Antarctica is a continent covered by a miles-thick ice sheet, a high, cold desert that magnifies these extremes into something truly alien and hostile. The adaptation of life to these cycles is a testament to its tenacity. The iconic emperor penguins of Antarctica endure the brutal polar night, the males huddling together in the perpetual dark and howling winds to incubate their eggs. In the Arctic, the muskox conserves its energy, its thick coat a shield against cold that can plunge to -50 degrees Celsius. The entire ecosystem is synchronized to this brutal binary rhythm of light and dark. To witness these extremes is to understand the power of the Earth's tilt in its purest form. The poles are not merely cold places. They are temporal landscapes where a day lasts for months and a night spans an entire season. They are the planet's great counterweights, its reflective ice caps helping to regulate the global climate. They remind us that our comfortable 24-hour cycle of day and night is a privilege of the middle latitudes. They show us the ultimate expression of the seasonal dance, a dance not of subtle changes in temperature, but of the very presence or absence of the sun itself. So, as you go about your day with its reliable sunrise and sunset, remember that at this very moment there is a place where the sun is circling the sky at midnight,
And another where the land is holding its breath in a long,
star-filled twilight, waiting for a dawn that is still months away. These polar extremes are the ultimate expression of our tilted world, a dramatic, beautiful, and humbling spectacle at the very top and bottom of our planet. We have traced the seasons across the continents, but the story does not end at the shoreline. The vast blue expanse of the ocean, which covers over 70% of our world, has its own powerful and deeply consequential seasonal rhythm. Before we dive into these deep currents, I want to thank you for exploring these hidden layers of our world. If understanding the ocean's silent dance with the sky brings a new dimension to your view of nature, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to The Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your interest is a current that carries this channel forward. Thank you. Now let us feel the ocean's pulse. At first glance, the open ocean might seem like a world apart from the turning year, a vast blue constant. But the same axial tilt and orbital journey that dictate the climate on land also conduct a grand slow-motion symphony in the sea. The ocean feels the seasons in three profound ways: through temperature, through light, and through the mighty currents these forces drive. The most fundamental change is in the sun's energy. Just as the land heats and cools, so too does the surface of the sea. In the summer, the high sun and long days transfer immense amounts of heat into the upper layers of the water. The ocean's skin warms, creating a distinct warm surface layer floating on the colder, denser water below. This thermal stratification is like a lid on a pot, trapping warmth and nutrients near the surface. Then, as autumn arrives and the sun weakens, the surface begins to cool. This cooling water becomes denser and starts to sink. This process, known as autumn-winter turnover, is one of the most critical events in the marine calendar. It churns the ocean like a slow, massive blender, breaking down the summer stratification and dragging life-giving oxygen from the surface down into the depths, while pulling long-trapped nutrients from the dark bottom up toward the light. This seasonal upwelling of nutrients is the catalyst for one of nature's most spectacular events, the phytoplankton bloom. Phytoplankton are microscopic plant-like organisms that form the very base of the marine food web. They are the ocean's invisible pasture. When the deep, nutrient-rich water reaches the sunlit zone, it acts like fertilizer. The phytoplankton explode in number, creating vast, swirling blooms that can be seen from space, painting the blue sea with great strokes of green and turquoise. This bloom is the starting pistol for the marine food chain. Tiny animals called zooplankton arrive to feast on the phytoplankton. Small fish follow, then larger fish, seabirds and whales. The entire ecosystem awakens and migrates to these seasonal feasts. The great whales' journeys from polar feeding grounds to tropical breeding grounds are a direct response to this pulse of productivity, a migration time to the planet's grand orbital metronome. Light itself is another powerful seasonal signal beneath the waves. In the polar regions, the long darkness of the winter shuts down photosynthesis entirely. But with the return of the midnight sun comes an explosion of life so intense it supports the entire polar food web, from the shrimp-like krill to the great blue whale. In temperate seas, the changing angle and duration of sunlight directly control the growth of vast underwater forests of kelp, which provide shelter and food for countless species. And then there is the wind. The seasonal shifting of atmospheric pressure and wind patterns, driven by the unequal heating of the Earth's surface, is the primary engine for the ocean's great surface currents. The monsoon winds of the Indian Ocean, which reverse direction with the seasons, have dictated trade and migration for millennia. These winds push the water, creating currents that redistribute heat around the globe, like a planetary circulatory system. The Gulf Stream, for instance, carries warm tropical water northward, giving northern Europe a climate far milder than it would otherwise have. This connection between ocean and atmosphere means the ocean doesn't just feel the seasons, it amplifies and moderates them for the entire planet. The vast heat capacity of water means oceans warm slowly in summer, preventing land from becoming scorching, and cool slowly in winter, providing residual warmth that tempers the cold. Coastal areas almost always have milder seasons than the interior of continents for this very reason. To understand the ocean's pulse is to understand that the rhythm of the seasons is a truly global phenomenon. The bloom of phytoplankton in the North Atlantic in spring is as much a part of the seasonal cycle as the blossoming of cherry trees in Japan. The journey of a humpback whale from Alaska to Hawaii is a migratory event as significant as the flight of geese across a continent. So, the next time you stand by the sea, remember that you are looking at a living, breathing entity with its own deep, slow heartbeat. The waves that lap at your feet are part of a system that stretches across the globe, a system that stores the sun's summer energy and releases it in winter, that feeds the world with seasonal rains, and that supports a hidden world of life dancing to the ancient, patient rhythm of the tilted earth. The ocean does not merely have seasons, it is the season for us all. We have followed the geometry of light and the pulse of the oceans, but now we come to the living, breathing response. This is the story of the biosphere, the thin, vibrant shell of life on our planet, and how every plant and animal is an instrument in a grand orchestra, all conducted by the silent, steady baton of the seasons. Before we listen to this symphony of life, I want to thank you for your deep curiosity. If witnessing the intricate dance of nature fills you with a sense of connection, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your presence is part of a wonderful, shared ecosystem of wonder. Thank you. Now let us observe life as it dances. For all living things, the seasonal cycle is not a backdrop, but a script. It dictates a fundamental choice: adapt, migrate, or perish. Over millions of years, evolution has choreographed breathtakingly precise responses to the predictable shifts in light, temperature, and food availability. One of the most visible dances is migration. This is the strategy of movement of following the sun and the rain. Consider the Arctic tern, a small grey and white seabird that makes the longest migration of any animal. It breeds in the 24-hour daylight of the Arctic summer, then flies an astonishing 70,000 kilometers to the Antarctic to enjoy another summer, essentially living in a perpetual global season of abundance. Its entire life is a chase for the midnight sun. Or witness the great wildebeest herds of the Serengeti, their movement a direct, dusty response to the seasonal rains, a circular pilgrimage for fresh grass and water. Monarch butterflies, spanning generations, navigate a continent to return to the same groves of trees in Mexico. These journeys are not random wanderings. They are ancient, inherited maps written in the stars, the Earth's magnetism, and the changing length of the day. For those who cannot leave, there is the deep slumber of hibernation and its cousins. This is the strategy of retreat. When winter's cold and scarcity descend, animals like the ground squirrel, the woodchuck, and many species of bats undergo a physiological miracle. Their heart rate slows to a mere whisper. Their body temperature plummets. They enter a state of suspended animation, living off stored fat. Their metabolism slowed so drastically that they barely age. They are waiting out the lean times, embodying the season of rest in its most extreme form. But the dance is not only for animals. The plant world is just as attuned. Deciduous trees do not simply lose their leaves in a random frost.
They are listening.
As the days shorten after the summer solstice, they sense the waning light. A hormone is triggered, and a layer of cells, the abscission layer, begins to form at the base of each leaf stem, slowly sealing it off. The green chlorophyll breaks down, revealing the brilliant yellows and oranges that were there all along. This is not a death, but a carefully managed withdrawal, a conservation of precious water and resources during the frozen, sunless months. Conversely, the first flowers of spring are not brave gamblers but precise timekeepers. A crocus bulb buried in the frozen soil doesn't respond to a warm day in January. It is waiting for the specific, cumulative chemical signal that the cold dormancy of winter has passed, and the days are now long enough to risk growth. Its bloom is a scheduled event, written in its very cells. This intricate timing, where life cycle events are synchronized with the seasons, is known as phenology. It is the study of nature's calendar, and it is a delicate, finely tuned system. The hatchling of caterpillar eggs must coincide with the budding of the oak leaves they eat. The emergence of bees must align with the flowering of the plants they pollinate. A mismatch of just a few days caused by a rapidly changing climate can have cascading effects through the entire food web. From the deepest hibernation to the most epic migration, these are all strategies to solve the same problem. The Earth's resources are not constant, but pulse with the rhythm of its orbit and tilt. Life has not simply endured this cycle. It has woven itself into it, using its predictable pattern as a framework for existence. The lengthening days of spring are a starting gun. The abundant light of summer is a command to grow and reproduce. The shortening days of autumn are a signal to store, to retreat, to let go. The deep cold of winter is a command to rest, to wait, to conserve. So, when you see a V of geese painting the autumn sky, or a squirrel frantically burying nuts, or the first brave green shoot piercing the snow, you are witnessing more than just instinct. You are seeing a deep, ancient conversation between life and the cosmos. You are seeing a billion-year-old dance where the tilt of the earth leads, and every living thing, in its own way, follows. It is the most profound rhythm on our planet, the silent beating heart of the living world. We have seen how the tilt of the earth commands the oceans and choreographs the life within them. Now we turn to ourselves. For humanity, the turning year has never been just a backdrop. It has been our most fundamental partner, shaping our survival, our societies, and the very stories we tell about who we are. This is the story of the human dance with the seasons. Before we reflect on this deep connection, I want to thank you for joining this long and contemplative journey. If seeing our own culture through the lens of the cosmos brings a new perspective, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to The Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your shared curiosity is what builds the culture of this channel. Thank you. Now let us consider our own place in the rhythm. The first and most profound relationship was born with agriculture. For hunter-gatherers, the seasons dictated the movement of prey and the ripening of wild plants. But with the dawn of farming around 12,000 years ago, our ancestors entered into a conscious pact with the solar cycle. They had to learn to read the sky, to understand that the sun's position on the horizon was a message. The heliacal rising of a star like Sirius, the length of a shadow at noon, the equinox. These were not abstract ideas. They were the calendar for planting and the signal for harvest. To misread these signs was to face starvation. This necessity gave rise to the world's first astronomers and the first great monuments. Stonehenge, the Egyptian temples, the Intihuatana, stone at Machu Picchu. They were not just religious sites. They were colossal, stone calendars built to pinpoint the solstices and equinoxes with absolute precision, ensuring that the community planted its crops at the perfect moment. The rhythm of the year became the rhythm of the plough, the scythe, and the granary. From this agricultural foundation grew the cultural superstructure of our seasons. The year's pivotal moments became anchors for our social and spiritual lives. We created festivals to mark the transitions, to give thanks and to plead with the forces of nature. The spring equinox became a universal symbol of rebirth. It is the time of Nowruz, the Persian New Year, a celebration of renewal for over 3,000 years. It is woven into the themes of Passover and Easter, festivals of liberation and resurrection, mirroring the Earth's own liberation from winter's grip. These are celebrations of hope, of planting seeds both literal and metaphorical. The summer solstice, the peak of light, has always been a time of unbridled joy and vitality. In ancient Europe, bonfires were lit on hilltops in a sympathetic magic to strengthen the sun. Today, we still feel this energy in midsummer festivals, in the long social evenings, in the feeling that life is at its most abundant and vibrant. The autumn equinox is the time of harvest, and with it, profound gratitude. From the Chinese Mid-Autumn Festival, where families gather under the harvest moon, to Thanksgiving in North America, these are moments to pause and give thanks for the bounty of the land. They are celebrations of completion, of gathering in the fruits of the summer's labor before the quiet sets in. And the winter solstice, the depth of darkness, is perhaps the most powerful of all. Across cultures, from the Roman Saturnalia to the Norse Yule to Hanukkah's Festival of Lights, this is the time we kindle flames against the dark. We celebrate the promise that the light will return. Our modern Christmas, with its evergreen trees symbolizing enduring life, and its themes of hope and birth, is a direct descendant of these ancient solar festivals. It is a celebration of faith held at the darkest hour. This dance extends to our food. For most of human history, our diets were relentlessly seasonal. The first asparagus of spring, the ripe tomatoes of high summer, the apples and squashes of autumn, the stored grains and preserved meats of winter. This was the natural, cyclical menu of our lives. This seasonality is encoded in our traditional cuisines and our collective memory. It is only very recently, with global trade and technology, that we have been able to step outside this cycle, a shift with profound consequences for both our health and our planet. The human dance with the seasons is a story of observation, adaptation, and celebration. We learned the sky's language to feed ourselves. We built our calendars and our communities around its rhythm. We composed our greatest myths and festivals to explain its power and to find our place within it. To live in tune with the seasons is to feel a part of something vast and ancient. It is to understand that the first day of spring is not just a date, but a feeling shared by billions of people across the hemisphere.
It is to feel a connection to the farmer who planted the wheat for your bread.
And to the ancient astronomer who first marked the solstice on a standing stone. So, as the year turns, notice how you too are dancing. Notice the lift in your spirit with the first warm day of spring, the expansive joy of a long summer evening, the reflective calm of an autumn afternoon, and the inward turn of a winter's night. You are not separate from this cycle. You are a part of it. Your life, your culture, your very sense of time is a beautiful, creative, and enduring response to the gentle, persistent tilt of a world in motion. Welcome back to a time when the sky was not just a spectacle, but a sacred text. Long before telescopes or precise calendars, our ancestors looked up and saw a cosmos filled with meaning. Their survival, their spirituality, and their very sense of order were tied to the reliable rhythm of the seasons.
And so
They raised colossal stones and aligned magnificent temples, not to the gods of men, but to the sun, the moon, and the stars. This is the story of how ancient humanity first wrote the language of the seasons in stone. Before we walk among these ancient observatories, I want to thank you for your deep and thoughtful engagement. If contemplating the wisdom of the past enriches your understanding of the present, I would be so grateful if you'd subscribe to the Sleepy Geographer. To those already here, your curiosity helps build a monument to wonder, stone by stone. Thank you. Now let us step back through the millennia. Imagine a world without printed calendars, without weather apps. The only way to know when to plant, when to harvest, when to expect the floods or the migrating herds was to read the sky. This was not a hobby for a learned few. It was a vital communal skill. The most important dates were the solstices and equinoxes, the turning points of the year. And to mark these days with absolute certainty, our ancestors became master astronomers and engineers. Perhaps the most iconic of these structures is Stonehenge on the Salisbury Plain in England. For centuries it was seen as a mysterious druidic temple, but we now understand it as a sophisticated astronomical observatory. Its great sarsen stones were erected around 2500 BCE with breathtaking precision. On the summer solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the heel stone, its rays shooting directly into the heart of the circle, illuminating the central altar. The winter solstice sunset is framed by another key alignment. For the people who built it, this was not just a pretty effect. It was a confirmation. The sun had reached its extreme, the cycle was intact, and the community could proceed with the agricultural and ritual year with confidence. It was a colossal stone guarantee of cosmic order. Across the world, in the deserts of Egypt, another civilization was building its own conversation with the cosmos. The Great Pyramids of Giza are often admired for their scale, but their celestial alignment is equally staggering. The sides of the Great Pyramid are aligned with the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, with an accuracy of within a fraction of a degree. How was this possible over 4,500 years ago? They likely used the circumpolar stars, carving a perfect north-south axis in the desert sand. Furthermore, the narrow ascending shafts inside the pyramid were precisely angled to point towards significant stars, like the pole star of the time and the constellation of Orion, which was associated with the god Osiris. The pyramid was not just a tomb. It was a machine for the king's soul to ascend to the eternal, unchanging stars, a permanent connection between the earthly and the celestial realms. In the Americas, the Maya were perhaps the most obsessed timekeepers the world has ever known. Their El Caracol Observatory at Chichen Itza is a fascinating spiral structure with narrow windows precisely aligned to the path of Venus, a planet of great significance to them. They tracked its cycles with incredible accuracy, weaving its movements into their complex calendar systems, which could predict solar eclipses and measure the solar year with precision rivaling our modern calculations. For the Maya, time was not a line, but a series of sacred repeating cycles, and their architecture was the mechanism for tracking these divine gears. From the Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu, a hitching post of the sun used by the Inca to mark the solstices, to the sun dagger at Fajardo Butte in New Mexico, where a dagger of sunlight pierces a spiral petroglyph on the solstice, the pattern is the same. Humanity, in its isolated cradles of civilization, was independently arriving at the same profound realization. Our world is part of a larger, predictable system. These structures were not built by primitive people. They were built by brilliant scientists and engineers who used the most durable material they had, stone, to capture the most fleeting of phenomena, a sunrise, a sunset, the position of a star. They were the hard drives of the ancient world, storing critical data for generations to come. They remind us that the desire to understand our place in the cosmos is a fundamental human trait. Our ancestors looked at the same sun we see today, the same migrating stars, and they sought to build a dialogue with them. They embedded their knowledge in the landscape, creating a permanent, silent teacher for their descendants. So, the next time you see a photograph of Stonehenge or the pyramids, do not see just ruins or tombs. See them for what they are, the world's first cosmic clocks. See the intelligence in their alignment, the profound need to find order in the heavens, and the breathtaking achievement of a species that, without modern tools, mapped the grandest rhythms of the universe and built monuments to prove they understood. They were the first geographers, the first astronomers, and in their silent, stony language they are still speaking to us across the vast expanse of time.